Hey guys, good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you may be. It is I, Mike Martins, and we're going to talk about the IMMIGRAT censored. This was sent to me by, I think, 11 or 12 people living in Australia, and they wanted me to address this and what's happening, and the immigration problem that's happening in Australia. So, before I kick that off, I would like to have an exclaimer so people understand. Before some left-wing nut trashes me in the comment section or calls me a racist. Disclaimer. My ex-wife was Muslim. Sorry, I can close that. My ex-wife was Muslim. I'm extremely famous in Portuguese Africa. There's my fan page. I'm sitting on 120,000 fans. This thing that Africa never had a real democracy because it's easy to manipulate a corrupt country by Mike Martin. That's all over the place. I reach about 70,000 people a week on average. And of the documentaries I made here. So when people start seeing okay, well, all right. So then, I speak Spanish. I lived in Mexico for 2 years. I lived in Miami. I speak Spanish, Portuguese, and English. I'm very well cultured in different cultures. My ex-girlfriend was Chinese. So I just want to give a disclaimer out there, like, so you guys understand, And it's very important because nowadays it's like you have to kind of explain to people where you're coming from, right? And before I kick off what's happening in Australia, we had immigration problems. I'm what they call in Canada a Portuguese. And there's hundreds of articles. Canada launches crackdown on illegal Portuguese immigrants. A lot of them weren't illegal. They owned homes for years, and their visas expired, and they basically sent tens of thousands of people back in the 2000s, early 2000s, 2006. There's hundreds of articles. Foreign laborers shown the door from Portugal. And it got so bad that they would, at the high school I was in, they would call all the Portuguese-speaking students downstairs to the gymnasium. Then we'd have to wait there until our parents came to pick us up and bring proof that we're allowed to be in Canada, to show that we are Portuguese, but we're allowed to be in Canada. So there's been a lot of immigration problems for certain cultures that a lot of people don't know about. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't understand, Everyone thinks it's all free and then it's an open door policy. Yes, it's a very open door policy, only to specific... Wow! Okay, guys, sorry. Updated April 23rd, 2018. Published March 28, 2006. Wow, so this thing was just updated. It was just updated, this article. So I'm going to have to reread this sometime. But there was just so much of us that weren't welcome in Canada. I would go to a job interview. The first thing they would ask me, are you a Portuguese? I get pulled over by the cop. Are you Portuguese? So it's not, I don't go out and protest it and whatever. I just, whatever. So I lived everywhere. I lived everywhere. I lived in Florida for many years and this and that. So I want people to know that there's, a lot of people aren't welcome in a lot of Western countries. I'm basically a Portuguese. In Ontario, for many years, nobody wanted us around. You know what I'm saying? Which is fine. It's not our country. You know what I'm saying? So, lots of these articles going around. Even Frank Mercer on Mercer Report did a whole thing about this, kind of making a joke about it because there was so many. I'll show you guys. I gotta show this to you guys so you guys understand where I'm coming from. I gotta show this to you guys. I'm sorry.
My name is Gary, and I'm not Portuguese. I just want to make that clear. I'm just a guy who works in the construction industry who happens to have curly hair, so please don't put me on a plane.
The Conservative government is deporting scores of Portuguese workers. It's the right thing to do.
I know these Portuguese people, and they're all the same. Nothing against the Portuguese. Most of them, they've been over here 10, 15 years. They come over here, they're highly skilled, they get construction jobs, they work 6 days a week, go to church on Sunday, pay their taxes, send their kids to school. Quite frankly, they're the root of a lot of the problems we have in Canada. Them and their work ethic and their Thursday night soccer games.
Portuguese workers have skills, jobs, families. It's time for them to go.
A skilled workforce is the last thing this country needs, and for a guy like me, who has very few skills, likes to take long smoke breaks, it makes life very difficult.
Portugal is just 5,200 kilometers from Iran.
And because I just happen to look Portuguese, people think when they hire me to build something that I know what I'm doing, that I know how to use this, whatever this is. And that's just wrong.
The Conservative Party of Canada, making Canada a little less skilled, one Portuguese at a time.
So they actually had to make kind of a spoof on it because it was getting so bad with the amount of people being deported and people getting taken away from job sites or whatever. And that's what happened. So there's, you know, I still, like, you know, I still have this thing inside me. You know, they called it a mass purging. The news called it a mass purging of us, that we're just basically not welcome. And then it goes back to this. I'd be living in Portuguese Africa if the country wasn't destabilized, right? So the country was... Oh, this is a trailer for one of my documentaries I launched. It was one of my trailers, and when things weren't that bad, you know, things were actually good. Cities were good, and my dad was living there at the time, and we were supposed to live there, but we got destabilized, right? So we get destabilized, and then we have problems. War comes. People not segregated. Everyone, blacks and whites living together. They were all Portuguese. Everybody's Portuguese, right? Portuguese were there for 500 years, not 50 years like the French were in Africa. But we lost everything. So we had to move somewhere else. So my parents chose to move to Canada, right? So anyways, let me go to my point, to what I want to talk about here tonight. So I want to give you guys that disclaimer. Now, I kind of want to talk about, before I kick off, my experience immigrating to the U.S. I went to the United States of America, state of Florida, and I applied with a lawyer. I got a tax ID number. I did everything by the book, and I was going to open a... distribution company, a major production facility, if you want to put it that way, down in South Florida, and had everything ready to go, and I had a lawyer and everything, and I'm dual citizens. I'm Canadian Portuguese. I have two citizenships, right? So I did everything by the book, blah blah blah, and then when I went to the interview, they told me that they're not taking in my kind right now, and maybe to apply in the next 2 or 3 years. So 3 to 5 years doing paperwork and then being declined. I didn't go out and protest it. If I'm not welcome somewhere, I just don't go there, right? You know, I kind of stay away, you know. I didn't go out and make a big deal. It just, you know, it's their country, and I have to respect that. And same thing would happen to us in Ontario. It's their country, and we have to respect what they're doing, right? That's just, I understand that, and that is something that needs to be, it's just what it is, right? And I'm not going to argue that. It's what the Canadian proper wants done, you know, and, you know, so this was sent to me. about what's happening in Australia. This was sent to me by quite a few people. Australian senator calls for final solution to immigration problem. So, you know, it is their country. And a lot of, you know, I'm pretty sure if they ask a lot of the people what they want to do with their country, I think a lot of them, because of this housing crisis they're in, Australia is in, I think, because a lot of the Australian proper, and when I say Australian proper, guys, please understand me, it's people that come from all over the world for the last, I don't know, 10 years, 20, 30, 50 years, that lay roots in the country, send their kids to school, blah, 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 pay taxes, and actually contribute to infrastructure. That's what I mean by Australian proper. People that are smooching off the system to get by, you know, screwing around with people and pulling scams, and people being deported 13 times. The same person being deported 13 times and coming back under another name and blah, blah, blah. But that's what I'm talking about. So let's hear what they have to say here in Australia. So this is a fresh article. It's a couple of hours old.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm pleased to advise this is my first speech. In order for us to remain the nation that we are now, those who come here need to assimilate and integrate. The record of Muslims who have already come to this country in terms of rates of crime, welfare dependency and terrorism are the worst of any migrant and vastly exceed any other immigrant group. The final solution to the immigration problem, of course, is a popular vote. We need a plebiscite to allow the Australian people to decide whether they want wholesale non-English speaking immigrants from the third world, and particularly whether they want any Muslims, or whether they want to return to the predominantly European immigration policy of the pre-Whitlam consensus.
Senator Anning has just delivered his first speech. And in giving the sort of bile that we get from time to time against Muslim Australians, he's decided to invoke the term final solution. Another speech belittling Australians, another speech dividing the nation, another speech wanting to incite debate, and those who have thought that maybe the best thing is to not give them what they want, I say if we continue to hold back, they've got exactly what they want. Muslim Australians, African Australians, Chinese Australians, when you invoke the final solution, Jewish Australians, in the same way as in years gone by, Greek Australians and Italian Australians have been the subjects of prejudice. The bigotry of today is no different to the bigotry of yesterday. And the bipartisanship against it that we had in years gone by, we don't have right now, and it must return. That's right. It must return.
So now that the housing crisis in Australia is starting to falter, next political platform is for and against immigrants. That's what the next political platform is going to be. And this political platform that just passed was for housing. So if you went on a political platform stating housing affordability, make housing affordable again, people are holding back from getting married, having kids, and blah, blah, blah. And the Australian proper isn't having kids because they just can't afford it, right? Holding back on getting married, holding back on doing a lot of things, you know what I'm saying? So I got to be really careful how I say this or how I word things out. So I want you guys in the comment section to create some sort of a dialogue, because my channel is built off commentary, you know what I'm saying? And I really wanted to put this video out because there's a lot of people it's a huge debate, and like he said in his speech, it was Italians and blah blah blah. There was always this some sort of problem against it, or bigotry against it, but you know, just it has to. The people in the country run the country, right? The people that vote their politicians and expect their politicians to make the right decisions, right? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of countries that can't immigrate to Canada, you know, and Portugal being one of those countries on the list. Ireland and a lot of other countries, they can't immigrate to. You just can't come and immigrate to Canada, right? It's very tough, right? So I don't know. I don't want to get into this too much because it's just going to flag my video. And it's going to flag my video because usually when you actually speak the truth, your video gets flagged, you know. And I understand the Muslim culture. My ex-wife was Muslim. I was married to her for almost 5-6 years. And our differences grew apart, but that's about it. Her family was open-minded, down to earth. And oh yeah, but they're Canadian. No, my ex-wife was born in Kabul, Afghanistan, right? A Persian princess. But you know, we grew apart. But at the time we were together, there was never this, you know, this whole mass immigration coming into the country, right? Into the countries. And now things are changing, right? And you know, a lot of good friends I have that I know tell me that a lot of these people are, there's some people, not a lot, but some people are really got to keep an eye on. And they're from they're from those countries that they're coming in. They're like, you got to watch out for some of these people. I don't know how the government's letting in this and that and this. And these are not Canadians telling me this. Is like people from Iran and Afghanistan telling me this. Like, holy Mike, you don't understand and this and that. It's like, you know. Anyways, I got to keep this as PG and kosher as possible. So I'm going to read a bit of this. So an Australian crossbench senator has invoked the term "the final solution" in an inflammatory speech, calling for plebiscites, asking voters whether they want to end all immigration by Muslims and non-English speaking people from the Third World. Fraser Anning, formerly of far right Pauline Hanson One Nation Party, and now a member of the Katter's Australian Party, used his maiden speech in the Senate to call for a plebiscite to allow the Australian people to decide whether they want wholesale non-English speaking immigrants from the Third World, and particularly whether they want any Muslims. So this is going to become the big debate now. And what's happened for the longest time is a lot of English-speaking countries have been being bought out for the last 10 years. Canada. So a lot of 15 years. Let's go 15 years. Let's give it some aggregation here. About 15 years. Okay? And a lot of people held back on having kids. A lot of people held back on getting married. A lot of people held back on getting a specific job because everywhere was just so expensive to move, and things just got worse to a point now where everything's starting to deflate all around the world. There's a huge deflation right now as we speak. And give it another 8 months, 10 months, we're going to be kicking off spring in Australia in a few weeks, right? A couple of weeks it'll be spring. And big spring sales, I have a feeling it's gonna just keep deflating as it goes on. But anyway, so a lot of people held back on life. They just couldn't afford to live because of this whole foreign investors. Lots of foreign investors were coming in, buying out homes at whatever price that they were offered at, and so it's scary. And then talking about this, you know, becomes a problem, because then my channel will get flagged, and I get flagged as a racist. And I gave my disclaimer at the beginning. So it's, you know, I can't get any more multicultural than I am right now. You know, I'm so, you know, my wife's Filipina. She's Asian, so you know what I'm saying. I'm everything. You know what I'm saying. And then this article kind of gives it a flip side of it, and it's 7 hours ago. So this comes out first, okay, by The Guardian. Then this flips in and says, Australia should celebrate, not fear its immigrants. So then this article is safe to read. It says, it took 4.5 years, thousands of dollars in fees, and a certificate of good character from the police in 3 countries to become a permanent resident of Australia. I'm one of the 162,000 people who gained the right to live in the lucky country last year. But as Australia's population passed 25 million last week, it has become clear not everyone is happy to call me or my fellow new arrival neighbors. Instead of celebrating a population milestone that bears testament of the country's incredible economic success and high living standards, an increasingly vocal right-wing political party and their shock jock cheerleaders warned about how immigrants are clogging roads, hospitals, and housing estates, and risk transporting a European separatist multicultural model down under. Australia's Minister for Multicultural Affairs, Alan Tudge, complained that many new migrants can't speak English and are not integrating. I'm sorry, guys. My vision's blurry and I have a grade 6 reading level. Integrating as well as they have in the past. His solution is to borrow. So when my parents came from Portugal to Canada, they became Canadian right away. They immigrated, they assimilated, they learned the language, they understood. I mean, mind you, I do speak Portuguese every day to my children. I never speak to them in English because one day if the poop hits the fan here, we could go to Brazil somewhere, some secluded part of Brazil, or we could go to Portugal or some secluded island off the coast of Africa somewhere, you know, just that speaks Portuguese and just kind of die in peace, you know, like just I could just be in peace, you know what I'm saying? His solution is to bar us from the 2 biggest cities, Sydney and Melbourne, to solve their traffic congestion problems. Tony Abbott, a UK-born former Prime Minister, warned about African gang problem and questioned why Australia stirs up trouble for itself by letting people who are difficult to integrate. As the week progressed, Australia's biggest media group, News Corp, weighed into the population debate, publishing an article titled "The Foreign Invasion," which accused a tidal wave of immigrants of sweeping away Australia's national identity. Sky News invited far-right extremist Blair Cortell, a convicted criminal who has called on social media for a picture of Adolf Hitler to be placed in every classroom, to offer his views on integration and whether Australia has room for newcomers. So this is something you guys should check out. Australia should celebrate and fear not its immigrants. And then temporary visa boom swamps Dutton's permanent migrant cuts. International students, graduates, and people are bridging visas to continue to fuel Australia's immigration boom. So, you know, what do you guys think? Hillary Clinton, that ran for... One of the reasons why I think Hillary Clinton lost her presidency to Donald Trump was because she believed in open borders. And people should be able to move around where they feel like, right? And you have to remember, for many years, a lot of these people for thousands of years, people protected their borders with their lives to keep their land protected, right? You know, Australia, and I brought this up a few videos ago. Australia is Australia, Portugal is Portugal, Canada is Canada, Spain is Spain, and Brazil is Brazil. Why? Because the people and the culture that live there are of those countries. The reason why China is not because we say it is and the map says it. No, China is China because the people that live there are Chinese. Okay? Australia is Australia because the people that live there are Australian. The people in Mexico is great. It's really tough to immigrate to Mexico. I lived in Mexico for 2 years. I couldn't open a bank account. I couldn't buy land there because I was a Mexican. I couldn't do nothing in Mexico. I could have bought a house on my credit card there. That's how, you know, inexpensive parts of Mexico is. But they wouldn't touch me. And they laughed at me because I'm a foreigner. They wouldn't touch me. I wouldn't be able to. And my friend owns a villa in Mexico and he bought a house and he's got a farm. Look at the fine print. I got a lawyer in Cuernavaca, Morelos. He read all my documents, the place I was going to buy. He's like, you'll never own this place, Mike, no matter what. But what am I signing? What am I buying? You get to live there, but you own the house, but you don't own the land it's on. So you're going to have to get out if something happens, or the government could seize your, you know what I'm saying? So Mexico is protecting its own borders. Mexico has a wall on its southern border. Mexico is you know, doing its thing to protect its sovereignty and its culture and its people and its language and its you know, why can't other countries do it? Why, you know, I don't see nothing wrong. You know, with me, like, if I'm not welcome here, like, you know, a lot of my people weren't. We were deported. You know, luckily my parents had all the paperwork in line. We did everything by the book. But the tens of thousands that were deported of Portuguese descendants, they were put on a plane and kicked out. Even though they owned property and homes, and they weren't running around couch surfing and stuff. They all worked construction jobs and hardworking jobs and plumbing jobs. They were all picked up and kicked out. You know, a lot of construction firms and companies and contractors closed down after that year because there was just nobody to do the work, you know. But so Canada's protecting its own interests. I accept that and I understand that. So, you know, open border policy, what do you guys think? The reason why Trump won the Latino vote was because the Latinos that were coming in illegally were taking the legal jobs from the Latinos that became and did all the paperwork to become legal and become U.S. citizens to work in America. They're losing their jobs to the illegals for lower wages. And that's why the Hispanics voted Trump, because they were losing their jobs to illegals. And they worked hard to, you know, get their papers right and get everything done by the book. This is a very controversial subject on social media, guys. So I just want to keep it PG, you know what I'm saying? And I think every country should respect what the people of the country want. I'm not talking about being a racist person. I'm not talking about, you know, ignoring your neighbor because he's not from your... I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about as a whole, a country as a whole. How does it project its own futures? How does it project its next generation? How do they usher in their next generation? How are they protect what it means to be Australian, or what it means to be Canadian, or what it means to be British or United Kingdom, whatever? You know, I know what it means to be Portuguese. I know the culture. And I'm giving that to my kids because that's one thing I could pass down to them that that they could understand, you know. Like I said, if we have to flee to Brazil or Portugal or Mozambique or something, we can. Because the language won't be a barrier, right? But this is becoming a huge debate now in Australia, and I think the next political platform for the next elections will be immigration issues. Does the mass amount of immigration dilute the population and create the congestion that they're saying? You know, I'm trying to be really like PG here. You know what I'm saying? I just want to ask questions. You know, I was in, like I said, I had my little thing going on too. I went to the U.S., did all my paperwork, did everything by the book, you know, and they said no. I applied as a Canadian. They said no, you know, and okay, I'll make it somewhere else, and I did. You know, if it didn't work in Canada, then I would have gone to, I don't know, Macau. I would have went to Portuguese China. I was offered a job there, being a pit boss in the Hotel Lisboa. They need someone that spoke Portuguese and English there. So a good friend of mine is like a couple of guys there are shareholders of that hotel, and they said, Mike, you know, this is before I met my wife. So if you want to go, you could live in Macau. We could put you up, and you could do maybe 2-3 years, 4 years, see if you like living in Macau. Portuguese China. I'm a Portuguese citizen. I could live there, right? In Macau. But I said, nah, you know, I've been there. I think it's a nice little Portuguese corner there on the island. I think it's really cute how they kept all the Portuguese history, the churches, well, the church wall that still exists there, and the streets are still in Portuguese names. And I like how they kept that little, you know, kind of like Goa in India, Portuguese India. But anyways, guys, immigration's been happening. Like, people immigrate, you know, people immigrate from countries and leave their zones of pain or zones of destruction. But it all boils down to the destabilizing of countries from that caused this. See, if let's say Angola wasn't destabilized, or Mozambique wasn't destabilized, and it was like in the 70s, right? Then I would have just lived there with my family and then did our business and did what we were supposed to do, right? My dad was supposed to open a huge taxi company, stuff like that. And my aunt, who's still in Mozambique today, owns a huge hotel. Now, there for like 35, 40, 50 years now, in this huge hotel with like 260 suites, 4 elevators. Yeah. So, you know, if our countries weren't destabilized, then I wouldn't have to come to Canada and cause this problem on the Canadian, right? And tons of us facing deportation, right? So it all goes back when you connect the dots, right? So what's happening, like, guys, I can't really talk too much and get into great depth because of the fact of me getting flagged. So I hope you understand my disclaimer. I hope you understand my story and struggle with immigration. And I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. My channel's built off commentary. And I didn't read all the articles in full because some of them go in depth, and it's social media, guys. It's YouTube. It's ThemTube, not YouTube. I want to know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.